This is Steffen Schmidt for InsiderIowa.com. As the presidential caucuses get closer, we begin to see some real action going on that end of it. But today I wanted to talk about some other political news, and that is that Iowa has been redistricted. We had 5 congressional seats in the House of Representatives. We now have 4. And one of those districts is very exciting, and that's the new 4th district, which is currently held by a very conservative Republican, Stephen King is a real Tea Party hardliner. I actually am quoted in several national publications saying that Steve King was the Tea Party before there was a Tea Party. His signature issue is immigration reform, and he's been very tough on illegal immigration. He does not want a glide path to citizenship or any of that. He really wants a tough policy on immigration. And he's a very bona fide, gold-plated conservative and has done very well in this district. The Democrats have tried to run people against him, though nobody really wanted to run against him, so they got what I call kind of sacrificial lambs to run, and nobody gave them any money, so it wasn't a contest. Well, guess what? This year he's in a new district because his district, part of it remains, but a lot of it has migrated, so the district is much bigger. There's some new counties in it. Ames, Iowa, which is a college town and is much more moderate or even liberal, is now part of that district, and so it's a new ball game. And a very well-known person, Christie Vilsack, the wife of former Governor Vilsack, the wife of the current Secretary of Agriculture, is now about to announce that she's going to run in this district as a Democrat. She is very outspoken, experienced, has traveled around the state for the years that Tom Vilsack was governor, was a great first lady, and is from a small town, so she understands small town Iowa. And that's part of the challenge in that district, is that you've got to really be able to appeal to voters living in small communities and rural areas. There are a couple of cities, sort of medium-sized to small urban areas. She'll do okay there, I assume. But it's a district that is really suitable for a conservative, and Steve King has done very well because of that. The question is whether she will be competitive and will be able to actually run a significant race against him, and I believe she will. The reason is that with the connections that she has through her husband and living in Washington, D.C. as Secretary of Agriculture, he's made a lot of contacts. He's a prominent national figure now. That race is going to attract a lot of money for her campaign to challenge the incumbent. Steve King is going to get a lot of funding from Tea Party groups and very conservative people because they would like to make sure he hangs on to it. This 5th district is going to be a national race. It's going to be watched by the national news media. We're going to have reporters here covering it. Usually House races are boring. Nobody pays much attention to them, but this one is different. This one is going to be a national race. And the reason is this. It's not just going to be a contest between Christie Vilsack and Steve King. It is going to be a test case of whether the Tea Party or a moderate Democrat can attract the independent voters. Remember, in order to win elections in the United States, you have to get a large chunk of the no-party independent voters. They are now, in many cases, the largest group of registered voters. They often vote Republican, but not always. They very often swing to the other side, and they were part of the success of Barack Obama in 2008. And so I'm going to start looking to see how she appeals to the independent voters in that district. Of course, Democrats most likely will vote for her and turn out pretty strongly. And of course, Steve King will get the Republican vote for the most part. But the thing that's different this year is that the issues that Steve King is strong on, namely immigration and fiscal conservatism, are also potentially going to cause some problems. And that's because there is a Republican budget proposal in Washington, D.C., and that budget proposal is to do all kinds of restructuring of Medicare, of Medicaid, Social Security, food stamps, and a lot of farm programs. Even if you're a conservative Republican and you're on Medicare or Medicaid and you're getting Social Security and you live in a small town that may be getting federal funds for various rural development or small town development issues, if your grandchildren or people that you know are farming, you really don't want any of those programs slashed. And the Republican budget, I think Christie Vilsack could make a case, is a direct attack against a lot of things that you could either call big government or you could call them programs that have helped to improve the standard of living of older Iowans with health issues, and of farmers in rural communities. Because ethanol and set-aside programs and other agricultural programs, which are funded by the government, are very important for the prosperity of the rural areas. So what I'm thinking is that this will be a competitive race because Christie Vilsack, if she runs a good campaign, and that's a big if, will be able to, I think, take on Steve King, and it'll be a tight race at the end. And she has a chance of winning it, which is pretty unusual when you run against an incumbent. Keep watching that race, and we'll give you updates as things develop. Christie Vilsack, I think, will run. She hasn't announced yet, but she's bought a home in Ames, Iowa, in that district. And you don't buy a house and move from Washington, D.C. unless you're going to do something else. Steffen Schmidt for InsiderIowa.com.